All right, this is chapter 1.2 in our biology section, and this is going over the blood flow through the heart. We did go over that last section, and there's a video on the Google Classroom about that. If I open a video right now, it'll not like me. So we're going to continue on here with our blood vessels. So there's two different types of blood vessels, and I think I did talk about this before, but the blood vessels that we have, I guess there's three parts. I'm forgetting about capillaries, but the main two that I always think of are the arteries and the veins. And there's something really cool about them in that they will always carry, I guess, blood in a certain direction. So arteries carry blood away from the heart, where veins will carry it towards the heart. And I think I told you this before, but I always think of away is arteries, and see how they both start with A for away. Okay? And then, away toward the heart is going to be our veins. Right. And then the third one here is our smallest blood vessels, which are called capillaries. If you ever watch some YouTube videos, there's some people that call it capillaries. But either way, they are the smallest blood vessels that connect between the arteries and the veins. This is where exchange of material between the blood and the tissues occurs. So I'm going to zero in on this picture just to sort of explain this. So if we're looking at the heart up here, from the heart, if it's going away from the heart to our body, this is going to be oxygenated blood. It's got oxygen in it, it's red. It's going to go until it gets to the place where we need that blood, and it's going to, the vessels from the arteries are going to get smaller and smaller, narrower and narrower, and that's what it'll basically change into capillaries. At the capillaries, they're actually only one cell thick, which means that it's really easy for things to go through the walls of the capillaries. So they're very, very small, and they have really thin walls. So at this point, this is when we can exchange stuff. And what's exchanged? Lots of things are, but our most important thing, this is where the exchange of oxygen for CO2. Okay? So we've got oxygenated blood going down here. The oxygen goes through here. It goes to the cells. That's not the right way. The oxygen goes to the cells through here. And at the same time as the oxygen goes to the cells, what it gives back to these capillaries is carbon dioxide, and we label that as blue. We have this as blue blood, just because that signifies that it doesn't have oxygen in it anymore. And when it doesn't have oxygen in it anymore, it has carbon dioxide, because this is a simultaneous thing that happens. It happens as the carbon dioxide leaves, the oxygen comes on, so it's like an exchange. So now this blue blood, this deoxygenated blood, is now going back towards the heart. And remember, towards the heart is veins. So at the capillaries, we've got arteries, they exchange, and then from the capillaries becomes the veins. Veins have really low pressure, so the veins actually have these little valves. And basically they're there to help blood will go through, and then these valves will close so that it doesn't fall backwards and go backwards. So these valves will help basically push it, sort of like a toothpaste tube, all the way up through the veins and back to the heart. From the heart, that heart is going to pump the blood to the lungs, And the lungs will exchange the carbon dioxide for oxygen, and then the cycle will continue. So right at the lungs, you know that when you breathe out carbon dioxide, and you breathe in oxygen. So that's that exchange, and then we continue on our cycle. All right? So that's the blood vessels. I probably went way ahead of myself here, but we'll see what all of this is. So it says use page 22 to fill in the following table. So this is page 22 of your textbook. I'll make sure to put it on the classroom for you, but I can fill out some of this with you or right now. So our arteries, those are always away from the heart. And what's really important about these is that they have lots of muscle. Okay, so they have lots of muscle, they're very elastic. And that's because at the arteries it has the highest blood pressure. All right. It's highest because that's coming right from the heart. That's where the pump is. And as it gets farther away from that pump, it would become less and less pressure. So our veins, they have the lowest pressure.
Here's some information.
Sorry, I hit Siri. It's gonna tell me some stuff about pressure. And we said before that this is toward the heart. And they're not so muscular, they're more, I'm gonna say rigid. So the rigid walls of it, they don't have as much elastic to them. But something about veins is that they have valves. So I'm gonna write that in there. Capillaries, they are smallest vessels. It's the smallest blood vessels. And they are the site of gas exchange, is what we say. I guess you could say they have low pressure too. The vena cava are the superior and inferior. This is going back to what we talked about in 1.1, looking at the heart. The vena cava is the part of the heart that the blood comes back into it from. And I'm trying to find a picture of a heart if I can, right here. So the vena cava is right, this one coming in the heart from the bottom and this one coming in the heart there. So for as far as our vena cava here, this is, I'm gonna say it collects blood coming back into the heart. All right. The pulmonary artery, this is pulmonary, remember? That has to do with lungs. So the pulmonary artery, if you remember arteries, away. So brings this brings blood away from the heart to the lungs. Then the pulmonary vein is going to bring blood back to the heart. Back toward the heart. from the lungs. Okay. And then the aorta, that is the very top of the heart. So if I go back to this picture, that aorta is what's coming, these two, I guess, vessels coming out of the heart, right at the top. So this is it's actually the biggest artery in your body. And what it does is it brings blood away from the heart to the body. Okay. So those are a bunch of heart terms, and those are definitely ones that you will need to know as we move along. Here's a picture of the major arteries and veins. It says first branching from the aorta to the coronary artery. This supplies the heart with nutrients and oxygen. So yeah, one of those ones we didn't talk about so far is the coronary artery, but if we have a picture of it later, I will explain that. So the major arteries of the body, this is a sort of a schematic of that. Sort of explains all of the different parts, or shows it in a picture, and sort of how it's going to be connected with these capillaries. So these are capillary beds, they call them. And that's sort of how you see it's going from red to purple to blue. So there's sort of a change from our oxygenated to deoxygenated blood in that. And that's what those mean. If I want to go really quickly, follow the heart or the blood through the heart. Blood comes back to the heart through the superior and inferior vena cava, which goes into here, which is your right atrium. The blood gets pumped through these valves to the right ventricle, and then out of the right ventricle through another set of valves out of the heart towards the lungs. It goes through the pulmonary artery to the lungs. At the lungs, it goes to both lungs, right? We have one on each side. At the lungs, they will exchange that carbon dioxide for oxygen, and then the blood will come back towards the heart through the pulmonary veins. Okay, so this looks like a lot of mess. I'm just going to take that off there. So we're coming back through the pulmonary veins into this part, which is known as the left atrium, and then through the valve to the left ventricle. The heart beats again, pumps the blood out of this valve, out through the aorta. And through the aorta, goes in many directions. I guess it's not actually that direction, that's the lungs. But it goes from there, and then I guess it's showing this downward right here. So it goes up towards your head and down towards the bottom of your body, and then that exchange happens. Then it brings it back into the inferior and posterior vena cava, and then back into your heart again. So this is a huge cycle. It's happening every second of your life. This is happening, or you would be dead. Your heart is pumping and doing this exchange without you even thinking of it. Okay? This is a picture of the arteries and veins and capillaries. So just to show you a little bit more what I was talking about. On the right-hand side, here's the artery, and it's got really thick walls. They're quite elastic, but a narrow opening surrounded by thicker tissue. It's got a lot of muscle with elastic fiber and connective tissue, which is elastic as well. So this has it can pump really big. It can withstand a lot of pressure. Then it goes to our capillaries, which they're very thin. You can see this magnifying glass, it's very small. Between the arteries and the capillary bed is called arterioles. So arterioles are literally just smaller versions of arteries. So as the arteries get smaller towards the capillaries, they call them arterioles. And then through the capillaries, that gas exchange happens. So you can see that where the red is coming off into, and then the blue is going in. So sort of that exchange is happening there under the magnifying glass. And then once the exchange has happened, our deoxygenated or blood that has carbon dioxide in it is going to go through the venules. So this is small veins. Maybe I can write that. So those are small veins, and arterioles are small arteries. Okay. So in doing that, they go through the small veins or the venules and then to larger, bigger veins. And those veins, if we look at the picture of them, they've got valves. So they have these sort of like, if you were to look at a side view, it might sort of look like this. And as blood goes through, they will close up to allow the blood not to go backwards. So you can see it in this picture. If blood is supposed to be going this direction, it's going against gravity. So these valves are going to protect it from falling backwards. Some people, as time goes on, it's a genetic thing. And also depending on how much you stand up and that sort of stuff. But you can actually get things called varicose veins, where basically the blood pools. It tries to go backwards against gravity, but it doesn't make it. The valves might be leaky, so then blood just sits there in your veins. And when it sits there long enough, it creates varicose veins. So it's sort of those purpley veins you might see on like older ladies' legs and stuff like that. But yeah, that's what a varicose vein is. It's just sort of blood pooled there. And you can get those removed or lasered to break up the blood clots that are happening there. If you notice, there is some muscle in the veins, but not quite as elastic, and it's a much thinner set of elasticity or muscle compared to over here. Okay? So that is what those look like. So here's some things. We've already wrote most of this down. It says arteries have thick elastic walls to withstand the pressure of the pumping heart. Arteries all carry oxygen-rich blood except for the pulmonary artery. And arteries get smaller and smaller as they head away from the heart. As they get smaller, they start to branch into arterioles, which are small enough to connect to the capillaries. Okay, so we already showed you a picture of this, but almost always arteries are carrying oxygen-rich blood or blood that has oxygen. Our only exception is the pulmonary artery. So that's an exception to the rule, okay? Why? Because it's bringing the blood to the lungs to get oxygen. Veins, they are the thing that brings blood leaves capillaries and flows into baby veins that are called venules, which connect to larger veins. There is not as much pressure in the veins as in arteries, so the walls do not need to be as thick. The blood in the veins must make its way back to the heart by using gravity. This is done because veins have small valves in them so that the blood does not go backwards. So I don't think they're necessarily using gravity. They're actually going against gravity. But I guess, yeah, there's gravity's trying to pull them down, but those valves are definitely holding them so that they can go against gravity. Arteries are under higher pressure and pulse with your heart, pushing blood through. Veins, however, have low pressure blood and require valves to prevent the backflow of blood. The contraction of body muscles also helps to ensure blood flow in the correct direction. So having movement can definitely help your blood flow because your muscles can sort of squish down on those veins to help push the blood through. Like I said, like a toothpaste tube, if you're pushing on it's going to be pushing upwards. So that is what our muscle contractions can do for our veins. And that's why someone who might be very sedentary, not move as much, and might be standing a lot could get those varicose veins. Here's what a varicose vein is. So if veins become stretched and the valves are damaged, blood in the vein pools, and this causes the veins to become raised, and this is known as a varicose vein. So a normal vein has nice closed valves. The varicose have blood that is flowing backwards that sort of pools there. There's a video, I will post that on varicose veins. I'm not sure which video this is, but I will post one that shows you sort of what they are and people removing them, which is a little gross, but anyway, I'll show you that so you can see what a varicose vein is. Tracing the flow of blood, if we go through our body, this could be a circle, really, but what's happening here is we're going from the heart to the aorta. So the aorta pumps the blood out of the heart. That's a type of artery. Through the arteries, it brings the blood to your arterioles. Oops. The arterioles, and then from the arterioles to the capillaries. From the capillaries, it exchanges blood for, exchanges blood. It exchanges the oxygen for the carbon dioxide. Then the venules will start bringing the carbon dioxide blood back towards the heart through the venules, then to the veins, then through the big vein in the heart, which is the vena cava, superior and inferior, and that's inside the heart. And then the whole cycle continues many times. They say about 5 liters of blood goes through your heart in a minute. So here's some questions to work on from page 23 and 24 of your textbook. You can do that at the end. I'm going to continue on. Show you about blood pressure. So if you guys were in class, we would definitely do a blood pressure lab. And if you do come back, we will do this. But blood pressure is the pressure exerted by blood against the walls of blood vessels. This is typically a major artery. To measure blood pressure, we look at millimeters of mercury. And this is a way that was used many years ago. And this is a unit measuring pressure in terms of the height of a column of a thermometer. So it shows you in this picture sort of what this would look like. So the pressure in a column of mercury is equal to the pressure of the blood in the arteries. So as we look at that pressure moving this column of mercury up, we look at the pressure. It should be the same as on the artery. So actually how you take the blood pressure is, we actually have machines that'll do it automatically. But if you had one of these ones that the doctor has, what they have to do is they put a stethoscope on your big artery in your arm, your brachial artery, and they will keep pumping up the thing until they can't hear your pulse anymore. When they've cut off the pulse, that would be one of your pressures. Okay, so pressure exerted on the air cuff, and then they'll start to let the air out, and once they can hear your pulse again, they'll write down that pressure, and those would be your blood pressures. There's two, so when we're looking at blood pressure, there's two numbers that you need. And I think it's going to tell you here, but I'll write it. So there's a typical normal-ish blood pressure would be 120/80. Okay. So this is the pressure. This is called the systolic pressure. And this is called the diastolic. Okay. And so the pressure, the one on the top is the one where the doctor's going to put the stethoscope on, pressure as much as you can until it cuts off that circulation or that pulse. He's going to look at the pressure, and then they're going to write that down. And then the diastolic is going to be as they let the air out, what is the pressure when they can hear that pulse again. Okay? And machines nowadays will do this for you. If you go to any pharmacy, you can take your blood pressure. And in class, we have a machine that does it. We don't do it the way that a doctor does, but I myself have high blood pressure, so my doctor uses that method. So your heart both relaxes and contracts as it pumps blood, so your blood pressure reading will have two numbers. The two numbers are what I just told you, the systolic and the diastolic. Your systolic is the pressure in the arteries when the heart is contracting. So when that blood is at its highest pressure, that's your systolic pressure. And its normal range is between 90 and 135. So as long as your number on the top is between 90 and 135, then you are in the normal range. Your diastolic pressure is the pressure on your arteries when your heart is relaxing. So this should be a lower pressure. If you have a really high pressure when your heart is supposed to be relaxing, there's probably something wrong there. A normal pressure for an adult is between 50 and 90. For me, I was told that normal is up to 140, but this is saying 135, so whatever that is. Like I told you before, the classic normal-ish range is 120/80. I take medication to keep mine in that range. I normally have readings in the 123/81 or something like that. So I'm definitely back in the normal range with taking medication. Blood pressure is written as systolic pressure over your diastolic, for example, 100/60. This is sort of cut off here, but I'm going to guess this is telling you what can change your blood pressure. So high blood pressure can be affected by exercise, excess blood in your vessels, thicker than normal blood, kidney disease, or caffeine. So if you take any caffeine or other stimulants, that can definitely make your blood pressure rise. So higher, I'm going to say, blood pressure. So all of these things can make your blood pressure go up. Prolonged high blood pressure can cause blood vessels to burst. If it happens in your brain, this can cause a stroke. High blood pressure, so if I go through these different things, exercise, so the more you move, the more pressure's on your arteries, just because your heart is going to pump faster to get more oxygen to your body. Excess blood in your vessels, so the more water you drink, the more blood is in your vessels. So one of the ways that they can lower your blood pressure is by making you pee, basically. So getting out that water, excess water in your body. So for me, that's what my medication does, is it makes me pee, basically. It gets rid of that excess volume of water, which will in turn make your blood less, and having less blood will make you have less blood pressure. Then if you have thicker blood, obviously that gives you more blood pressure. Kidney disease is an effect of high blood pressure, just because the high blood pressure can affect your kidneys, sort of hurt the blood vessels in that area, feeding your kidneys. And then your caffeine and stimulants, yeah, those are going to make your heart beat faster, which can make your blood pressure go up. Your low blood pressure, so this is not enough blood, can get to all of the areas of your body, and this can cause dizziness and fainting. So for me, I often have dizziness just because I think that my blood pressure is actually like normal / lower because of the medication that I take. So it ends up making me have low blood pressure, which makes me feel pretty dizzy. So this is definitely for feeling faint. You might have lower blood pressure, and it's good to just take a break to try and level out your blood pressure. This is showing you how they do it. So I did explain this already. The first picture, you're going to inflate the cuff using this little bulb. As it's pumped, this is going to inflate, and it's going over that major artery in your arm. The doctor or whoever's doing this is going to listen until there's no sound of blood flow, so they're listening. And once they can't hear that pulse, the artery is closed and there's no blood flow, so the pressure that's on that artery, they're going to check. So whatever they have that reading here is going to be that systolic or that high number on your blood pressure reading, that top number in the fraction. Then it says tapping sounds heard as blood spurts through narrowed arteries. The artery starts to open. Your valve on your bulb is slowly releasing air. And as you do that, once you start to hear that blood going through the artery, so once it becomes fully open, you finally start to hear the blood move through the artery, you're going to write down that number as well. So you cut off the circulation, write down the number, then you lower the circulation until you have full circulation again, and then you're going to write that number. It says the instant the tapping sound stops. So yeah, when that full open artery is. It says you must know the steps for using a traditional blood pressure cuff, but we will use a digital one, which are, these blood pressure cuffs are called sphygmomanometers. And we don't use those in class, but we have the digital ones, and we can use stethoscopes to hear that point where you're shutting off of the artery flow. Okay. So it says use the digital blood pressure cuff to carry out the lab procedure on page 31. So we will do this in class if you guys are in class again sometime. If not, I'm sorry. I will maybe put a video up of how you do this. So let's say that. So we're going to put a video of how to use the blood pressure cuff. Okay. And then there's some questions there that go along with that section. So this is 1.2 for you. You'll see the two videos. The one video of the blood going through the heart is already on the Google Classroom. I think there was another video I was going to show you. Yes, varicose veins. So put a video of that as well. Video on Classroom. So you'll see the video of the varicose veins and the video of how to use a blood pressure cuff along with this video on this lesson. All right, so have a great day, and we'll continue with 1.3 right after this video.